Hey guys, I'm here working on my Medusa ashtray. This ashtray's been kicking my butt for like the longest. Whew. Let me just break it down real quick. Um, I decided that I was gonna take a styrofoam skull, create a divot on top. You know, originally it wasn't meant to be Medusa, but it kind of just became it. I initially, when I started putting like the rhinestones onto the skull, I was like, this is becoming something. I didn't know what it was becoming though. And eventually, the idea of making Medusa's ashtray became a thing, and that's when I attached a very weird looking snake, but regardless, a snake to kind of caress the skull in a way. Um, that was the initial goal, and I continued working on it past this particular video, so it's gonna look a little different on the next video. But it's slowly coming together. The rhinestones in particular with the skull are driving me a little crazy. I'm not gonna hold you. I I appreciate the finer details to these things, and especially with that divot on top where that would be where you kind of ash your cigarettes or whatever. It's tedious because the rhinestones are super duper small, and I have my father's fingers, so that's fun. Anyways, yeah, no, but it's a work in progress, and there's so much more I want to do to this particular skull. Like making the eyes pop. Obviously, Medusa is known specifically, her eyes will set you to stone. I just wanted to kind of incorporate that as well into this particular piece, and it's still a work in progress. I have a vision in my head, and I'm just trying to act on it. I want to make sure that when you look at this, it's going to be something that you can't get out of your head. I'm working really hard on this, and this is a project that I am eternally like really excited about, truth be told. But also, the other part to this ashtray is the snake, and that's been driving me crazy for a long time because I just didn't know what I wanted to do to the snake. I didn't know how I wanted to design it because obviously, knowing Medusa's past history, especially when you think about how many versions create or make the snake into a curse. And, obviously, Medusa has such a tragic history, and essentially, she was punished in many versions for what happened to her. Um, I was like, I can't look at this and think, oh my gosh, this is a curse. Um, there's another version of Medusa's story where Athena actually transforms her into this monster so she could be protected. These snakes were a form of protection because she didn't have that when Poseidon had his gaze fell upon her. So I wanted to honor the idea that these snakes could be just something protective, something scary but also beautiful at the same time. These snakes weren't there to harm her. They were there to protect her, and that's obviously the I guess the vision I had in my head when decorating the snake, because I was just like I anyone could just grab scales and call it a day, and I was like, I don't want to do that because I don't think it would be. I for some reason it didn't sit right with me, you know. Um, so I continued working on the snake afterwards, and I had an idea. I have an idea of how I want to pursue the snake further, um, adding more of a complex beauty to it versus just a simple scales and snakes. And I mean, have you guys seen some of these snakes? They're absolutely fucking gorgeous. I know I told myself I was gonna like stop cursing, but I just had to say that there's a lot of beautiful snakes out there, and obviously I don't have the capacity to even get close to imitating their beauty, their natural beauty. But you know what? I did my best. But yeah, that is I was really excited this project too because I was just so happy getting outside my comfort zone and creating art outside of the normal box. Because if you go onto my website, you'll see a lot of ashtrays, and I try to make every single ashtray really unique. Like, you're not gonna find the same two. But I also, because I use regular silicone molds, it's not repetitive, but the same shape over and over again does kind of get boring a little bit. But this idea, this ability to kind of create something outside of what I would normally do was really exciting to me, and I got more stuff to make more stuff outside the box. So I'm pretty excited about that, and I hope you guys are too. I mean, I genuinely hope that someone can find what I create beautiful and unique and would be happy to display whatever they got from me at their home. It's a talking point. These ashtrays, these rolling trays, these bags that I sell, I don't do it just so that, oh, whatever, I got it, what I have. It's a talking point. The idea is that I create art that you could smoke from, you know. So that's originally the goal. But as I was doing research on Medusa, I, you know, came across a couple of things that, like, I didn't originally know, like her origins. We are her tragic backstory, the curse, is something that we are very familiar with, even if you're not really into Greek mythology. You hear Medusa, you're like, okay, well, she has the snakes, and, she's been cursed by Athena, and, everyone knows that. But not many, at least not to my knowledge, not many people would know the origins, or, know that she was just originally one of three Gorgons. Now, do I know what a Gorgon is? Not really, but it's just interesting because you really don't hear, you don't really hear the origins. You hear the curse, which is obviously something that we are told in a later version. And interestingly enough, I've read somewhere too where I heard two different things where this was either a curse towards her or something to protect her. So it's just really interesting how there's different versions or different stories of, Medusa and her snakes. But is interestingly enough, Medusa was one of the three Gorgons alongside her sisters. And unlike her sisters, Medusa was mortal. Her sisters were not. And apparently she was born simply as a monster. The monster that we are familiar with. I don't recall ever being told this, and quite frankly, this probably is just, readily available information that anyone could just look into. It's just like, you always ever hear of the curse and not so much of her origins, which is, it's sad because there should be so much more about Medusa that isn't really spoken about. And then her dying at the hands of Perseus is just, tragic. I think her entire story from beginning to end is just absolutely fucking tragic. And it's just goes to show that obvious Greek mythology, there doesn't really seem to be a lot of happy endings. I mean, like, don't even get me started on Zeus. I mean, Zeus and Hades, that relationship, oof. I mean, it's just really interesting. And the more I do or work on this ashtray, the more I'm learning. And I appreciate that because I like, cheesy as it sounds, I like filling my cup with more information, more knowledge, more skills. So it's been a very interesting journey while making this ashtray, and I cannot wait to show you guys the final project. So keep following for more.